Welcome back, guys, to another episode of Authentically Albertan. Here I am, back in the alcove, this time with Jocelyn. Jocelyn is an actress and a producer. Jocelyn,
Hi.
how have you been?
I've been pretty awesome.
Yeah?
Pretty busy lately.
Pretty busy this winter. That's good to hear.
It's been really good, yeah. How have you been? Congratulations on your third season.
Thank you so much. I've been great. I've been, enjoying this sunny weather that we've gotten lately.
Yeah.
Taking it all in before the cold comes in. And then just, again, listening to guests, interviewing them. It's been great. It's been great this season. I'm very, very happy to have this batch of guests lined up.
Awesome.
So what's kept you busy this winter then?
Lots of acting projects and producing, and I just directed my first short.
You directed one.
I
Okay. I didn't know about that. I didn't know that you directed too.
Yeah,
That
I
was
saw
one of my
that was one of
questions.
your potential questions, so beat you to it. Yeah,
Nice,
it's
nice,
been really
nice.
good.
And did you, was it this winter or did you direct it in the fall or when did it happen?
Earlier this month.
Earlier this month?
Yep.
Wow. So
Yeah.
what's it about?
It's a horror short.
It's a horror short. Okay,
Yeah.
everybody starts out directing a horror short.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With a previous short that I produced and acted in, The Saint and the Bear, it did really well in the festival run. And so we went to a lot of really cool, unique festivals, and that kind of inspired me to make one of my own.
Yeah, did you write the script too?
I did, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And
so-
what's the story about?
It's about two girls who run a little podcast, a YouTube podcast, and they go to a haunted
can relate.
house with a special guest, and it goes a little crazy.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's exciting to hear.
Yeah, it's really short. I like really short films. I find they're a little more impactful than the long, drawn-out ones, and so I want to keep it kind of around the 6-minute mark, and it's beginning, middle, and a crazy ending.
Well, because, in the long films, there's a lot you can cram into, but in the short ones, you really have to think, you really have to make use of your time. So each second of that film means something.
Yeah, absolutely. It really does. And I mean, as a first-time director, I didn't have a grant for this one, so I wanted to make it as efficiently as possible. One location, one shoot day,
Yeah.
kind of an in and out, and we did it. It was pretty exciting.
Were there any inspirations for this script? Like I mentioned, it sounded like something out of Goosebumps.
So I believe it was last year at the Calgary International Film Festival. A few of my friends had a short film that was playing before a feature film. And so I went to see the short film and then stayed for the feature film. And I had no idea what I was getting into for the feature film. It was called Puppet Man, directed by Brandon Christensen. Do you know of that one?
I haven't heard it, but I think I've heard the name.
I was blown away by this film and the unique deaths and just the whole horror aspect of it and how well done it all was. So I did draw a bit of inspiration from that film. And then also just from the film festivals that I've been going to this year, kind of picking and choosing little aspects that I really
Like which
enjoy.
one worked for you?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
So-
great. That's a good strategy. Did you keep like a little journal and just keeping track of which scenes worked, which moments really excited you?
I wish I was that organized. No, it was all just in my brain.
Yeah, fair enough. But hey, they made enough of an impact that they applied to the script months later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about it. So it should be done by the end of January. We want it to be all finished up so we can start submitting.
And as an actress and now a director, from the director's point of view, how did it feel directing actors?
I loved it.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's such a unique experience. I feel like almost every actor should have the opportunity to do it if that's what you really want to do. But there were times when I was a little jealous, to be honest, where I'd see like it was there were some stunts and some pretty gruesome deaths and lots of blood and pretty campy stuff, and I was like, oh, I wish I was in there doing it. But being able to kind of turn that around and get the actors to really commit to it was awesome. It was unreal.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear that you had fun with the role of directing. It
Yeah.
really changes your perspective. It puts you in a more, I'd say, evaluating role, I would say. You gotta
Yeah.
evaluate everything, you gotta review everything, you gotta
Yeah.
take it all in, and then give feedback. And how do you give feedback to people, you know?
Yeah.
In a way that really, really makes them take it in. Because
Mm-hmm.
sometimes they can say, okay, sure, and then repeat the same mistake.
Yeah.
But how do you give that feedback to people?
I think a lot of it was choosing the right actors for the roles. I mean, I knew Natasha and Carlos right from the start before I wrote the story. And so being able to know your actors while you're writing, that makes a big difference.
Yeah.
As far as Nora goes, I mean, her talent is, it's unreal. All three of them, I knew that all three of them would be able to commit and give me 100% because there's lots of screaming, there's all sorts of random stuff in there. And so I needed that, and I knew that I could get it from them. As far as the character development goes, I left a lot of that up to them because I do trust them all as actors. So I wasn't too nitpicky about their mannerisms or how they were going to do certain things. It was more just like, have fun with it. And like this is a short, exciting film. So just keep that in mind when you're doing your performance, and
just keep that energy up.
Yeah. High
very,
energy,
very important.
and lots of fun and lots of gory death.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear that you get to direct your own project. Did you use any like, what was the highlight of the whole experience for you as a director? Is there a moment where it really called to you and you said, I'm really happy that all of this journey in the film industry has led me to this point?
That's such a good question. I think as a writer and director, there's one particularly dialogue-heavy section, and just watching that play out, knowing that it was my words that I wrote, my story that I created, that I've then given to these actors who I trust fully. And I mean, sitting there watching my words, it was an unreal experience.
Coming to life.
And it looked
so the whole experience
so
of it
cool.
coming to life really.
Yeah.
How did this whole journey start for you as an actress?
Oh.
In the film industry.
Well, I've been in the film industry as an actor for about four years and a couple months now.
Yeah.
So I'm still fairly new to it. It's something that I always wanted to do since I was really little. I remember in junior high, I had an incredible drama teacher, and she just kind of showed me this whole new world, and I fell in love with it, and I got to do the plays, and just really the passion for it started then. And then high school came along, and I was a pretty intense athlete, a competitive swimmer.
Wow, nice. That's the
it
best
was
sport,
nice,
one of the best sports.
But it also, it was very time consuming. And so I was in the drama program in high school, and there was a little advanced drama program, which I loved. And so I got to do that, but I couldn't partake in the plays or anything outside of school because of swimming.
Yeah.
And then after high school ended, I did some community theater, and again, I really enjoyed it, but I was kind of always, it was like, I want to be an actor. And then it was like, okay, cool. What else are you going to do? What are you going to do for real though? And I had no idea. I never in my life did I have a second thing that I wanted to do. So I kind of ended up just doing a little bit of everything, and spent a lot of time traveling and doing different jobs. And then I moved back to Calgary and got married and had a kid, and COVID hit, and I got let go of my job. I was a lifeguard.
You were a lifeguard. I was going to ask you, what did you do beforehand?
Yeah,
But
so
lifeguard suits you too.
Lifeguard would have been my most recent job. I've done
Yeah.
a million, but yeah, all the pools shut down. And so we all got let go, but I was not too bummed about it because I was ready at that time to kind of step out and try something new. But again, I had no idea of what I wanted to do. I looked through so many classifieds, and there were a ton of jobs that I knew I could do, but I didn't really want it. And so my therapist was really great, and she reached out and she asked, like, well, what did you want to do when you were a kid? And I was like, oh, well, I wanted to act. I always wanted to be an actor. And I kind of like brushed it off, and she she kind of lit up and she was like, I see that for you. She's like, you should go for it. Why not? She's like, give it a go.
Yeah.
And so I enrolled in acting lessons and got my best friend to take some headshots, and I just jumped in.
So getting into the film industry during the pandemic, first off, how was the encouragement? You know, at that point, you're a mother, you've got a husband, you've got responsibilities.
Mm-hmm.
How was that like? Like that's a very bold choice in the middle of a pandemic.
It was difficult on some levels, but it also just, once I started, it all just kind of started falling into place. And so it was maybe more difficult for other people than it was for me, because I felt like I was doing the right thing. And every little project that I would have, you know, when I was starting out, it would have been a lot of student films and just like the fun, low pay commercial type jobs.
Yeah.
And they maybe didn't bring in a lot of money, but I was gaining so much experience and meeting so many different people. And with each project, I found, you know, you work with someone on set and then they would phone you up a couple weeks later and you'd get on another project with them. And then just the networking would grow like crazy. And so...
Have you always been an extroverted person, a social person?
Yes and no. I'm a bit of both, to be honest. I do have a lot of fun when I'm out being social, but I find afterwards I'll tend to hermit for quite a while. And
you got to recharge your social battery.
Yeah, for sure. And so that's, I mean, when you're on set, it's long hours with tons of people, and so it's kind of like that. But when you're, it's just a totally different world, and most of the time everyone's so excited and happy to be there, and they're doing things that they enjoy doing and creating something. So it's really fulfilling for that.
Yeah, because a lot of the jobs, a lot of the gigs that you get is based on, you know, networking and who you know. So that's a huge skill to have.
Yeah.
And again, it's intimidating coming into a field and you don't know anybody.
Yeah.
So I wanted to get your perspective on that, on coming into the field, you know, having that encouragement, having that confidence in knowing that you'll succeed.
I think that's where the life experience part really helps. I've lived a life already, and so I wouldn't. It's nerve-wracking, but I wouldn't necessarily say that I'm very intimidated easily by a lot of things, and so I'm not afraid to reach out to people and ask questions or introduce myself to anyone on set. It's always, and I don't think I ever really have been. It's just been a good skill, and I find in this industry, a lot of times you see people who are kind of like hiding in the corner, and you're like, no, like go and say hi.
The sound people usually.
Yeah, right. And you're like, go say hi, because like you never know who you're gonna meet on set, and you never know who has a project down the line that they might be looking for someone, and you could fit that role perfectly. So I think that just being able to kind of put yourself out there and not take yourself too seriously. That's been a huge thing for me, where I'm in this because it's fun and I love it, and I feel like it's filling my bucket in so many different ways, and it's not a huge stress on my life. I'm in it because I want to be in it, and so I don't take anything too seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot of good advice that I hear from people in the industry, from actors especially. You know, just not to get so invested, so involved.
Yeah.
Where you're just driven crazy by it and then you just hate it.
Oh, absolutely.
So,
Or people who get like so intense in one little project, and then they'll see the project and they're not happy with it, and then it's like, well, my career's over. And it's like, no. It's just one of many projects. Like, they're not all going to be awesome masterpieces, but if you can find the good in each little project, the experiences that you got from working on your character, maybe you met some great people on set, even if the outcome, even if the project itself isn't this huge successful masterpiece, there's still so much that you got out of it.
And when starting out, did you have a mentor in acting? Did you have maybe somebody else in the family who was also involved in acting?
Definitely not in the family. No.
So no one else in the family acts.
No. Yeah, definitely. My dad was a firefighter. My mom's a lifeguard. My sister's an accountant. My brother trades electricity. So I was very different in the family, but I always have been. I always kind of stuck out as.
Are you
as
the
more,
middle child?
I'm the youngest.
The youngest.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So, and I was a mistake. So I was kind of always played that role quite well.
I wasn't planned either.
No.
No.
Nice. And look at how great we turned out. I do have a best friend who's an actor in Vancouver, and we actually went to school together. And so in high school and junior high, that's when our passion for acting started together. And so straight out of high school, she moved to Vancouver to pursue acting, and I stayed here. And so she has a lot of experience and helped me out a lot. And then also just when I started out, I went to Company of Rogues. It's an acting studio here in Calgary, and everyone continues to be so helpful. So the instructors and the other students, and like that was essential when I was starting out. I really had no idea what I was doing. So to be able to ask them
And have some
any
guidance.
kind of question. Yeah.
What's the first project that really stood out to you at the beginning? That you were like, okay, now it's putting me to the test. In that pandemic era, 2021,
So
2020.
at the very beginning, I did a student film with Corey Gomez.
I know him.
Yeah.
He was in the show.
Was
last
he really?
season. Last
Oh, that's
season. He was
great.
one of our
Yay,
Red Deer
Corey.
guests.
Oh, that's awesome.
And then I was first AD in his short earlier this year.
Oh, were you? Which
I
one
was there
that?
with you.
Yeah. Which one?
Lornica.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah. See, sometimes I just need a reminder. So he directed and wrote, I believe, I Could Never Love Another. It was a student short film when he was
it
in
the one
Saint.
about the light switches?
Yeah, like the AI.
Yeah.
It
He
was
told
the
us
little,
about that on the program.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that would have been, I think that was probably like my second or third short film that I'd ever done, but it was definitely a key moment where I had multiple times on that set where I was like, yes, like this is it. I'm doing it. And there were so many people around, and they were all working so hard to make it a success. And my scene partner and I were really like connecting, and it made me feel really confident in my choice to put myself out there.
How is the process like becoming unionized as an actress?
I didn't want to go union. There's pros and cons, and it's totally dependent on who you are as an actor. And I was pretty successful in the commercial world. And unfortunately in Alberta, 99% of commercials are non-union.
Yeah.
And they can be pretty lucrative, and they're so fun, and they're these just like exciting short projects that you kind of get to jump in and out of. And so I was really fortunate to work a lot on them. And so for me, it's hard though, because once you are a union, you're kind of at a whole new level of projects. And so for me, when I started booking the union jobs, I think you can book like 3 or something, or have like a certain number of days before you basically have to join, till your fees become like more than your pay. And so I waited for the last minute, and then did kind of have to join. And then the strike happened. So it was honestly like, I think I joined the union in June, I believe, and like the strike was like July maybe, and so it was like, oh, great.
Are there any requirements you gotta meet before joining the union? Because I know, for example, DGC,
Yeah.
you gotta be a permittee before you're a full-on member, and what that means is you gotta work on set for 90 days.
Yeah.
And then apply to become a full-fledged union member with all the benefits.
Right. Similar to acting. I'm not too sure what the rules are. I think it's 3 days though. It's not as many.
90? Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think it's only 3 days on set, and then you can become a what do they call it? Not a permittee, but apprentice.
Maybe.
Maybe that, I don't know. But then I think once you have 7 days, then you can be full member. And so I was at the point where when I joined, I already had all my days. And so I didn't do the apprentice. I was just
Full-fledged member.
full-fledged.
Boom.
You're in it now. And then there's a strike.
So after that initial era, 2020, 2021, again, working with Corey,
Yeah.
what project was next? I believe I was reading the IMDb on you that
Yeah.
you've got, and I saw Clowning Around at the
yeah.
at the very beginning.
Yeah. So
How is that like?
Clowning Around was one of my first, I mean, still pretty low budget, but enough of a budget that we were all getting paid.
Yeah.
And it was great. It was like a kind of dramatic comedy, romantic comedy.
Dramedy?
Yeah. And it was, I mean, the director wrote the story based on her fear of clowns. So it was pretty fun to be able to, play the character that portrays her. My most influential role in the non-union realm, which is where I would have been at that time, would have been Excommunicado. And that was also my first feature film.
Wow.
Technically my second feature film, but the first one was like a no budget kind of fart around one. So Excommunicado would have been my first full budget feature film, and it was an action film. I got to play the lead.
How was that?
It was
Just
phenomenal.
physically must have been a challenge too.
Yeah, it was a lot. So we were in Drumheller for 3 weeks, and then we had about another. It was on and off, but like say 3 weeks of shooting here in Calgary, and I got to drive a really cool car, and we did our own stunts. There was a lot involved in that film, and I loved it.
You do your own stunts.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. I mean, none of them were too extreme. But all the fighting, all the driving, I did it all.
I saw some pictures. You look like Lara Croft.
Yeah, that would have been the one Calgary scene. Yeah, it's cool because it's like in Drumheller, it was kind of Mad Maxy style, lots of dust, and then.
What's the story about?
It's about a woman. It's takes place in kind of a different universe, not Earth, and a woman has to deliver a soul. And it's kind of about her journey delivering this soul, getting chased down by a different evil
Entity or
yeah
character?
Yeah, demons and kind of why she needs to deliver this soul and what happens when she does. So there's a lot that went into it, and it was so fun. Oh, I just loved it. It was like summer camp in Drumheller. We got to stay in Airbnbs together, and it was pretty.
Did you have to do fight scenes?
Yeah.
So were you trained like?
Yeah, so we had a fight
the whole
choreographer.
rehearsals.
Yeah.
What's your first time doing
Sorry?
fight scenes?
Yeah. Was it? I think I had done something small previously, but this would have been my first like full-on action role, and it was awesome. It was so fun being able to flex those different muscles and do something a little different.
In a way, they talk about those fight scenes, those rehearsals, more than dancing, rather than actually just fighting.
Yeah.
Do you find it challenging memorizing all those moves, all those different sets of bodywork that you had to do?
Not necessarily, and I think it's important that you have your choreography and you go through it all, and everything's kind of planned out step by step, but then when you're on set and you're actually doing it, things will change. And so
Did you end up punching the other actor?
Well, you never know. The camera can be set at a different angle, and one of the moves that you thought was going to work isn't going to work. So you have to be flexible enough to adapt. And so a lot of it was like drilled into our brains, and then on the day it's like, okay, but then we're going to do this part a little different. We're going to do that part a little different. And so it's just all about being open and free, and trusting the process and having fun with it, because it was so fun.
What was the most fun, memorable scene shot that you did?
I'm torn between a couple of the driving scenes. I'd say we had one pretty big fight scene outside in Drumheller, and it worked out so well. I think, yeah, we had so many setups planned for the day, but fortunately it was overcast on the day, and we actually got to do a lot of it handheld, and it worked so well. And so just being able to kind of play the fight from start to finish multiple times was really, really fun.
And handheld, it's easier to reset than
Yeah.
with the whole dolly or with the tripod.
Yeah, and you don't have to worry about shadows, because that was the main concern in Drumheller, where it's super sunny, there'd be shadows everywhere. So the overcast really helped for that.
Your character, how was it like preparing for it? Aside from the physical stuff,
Yeah.
what about more like her depth? You know,
So
what was it like?
This character was pretty unique because she couldn't speak.
She couldn't
she's,
speak.
She's mute. There's no.
She is
no
Lara
dialogue.
Croft.
Yeah, Lara Croft can't speak.
In the original ones.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I think in the original ones she doesn't talk.
Ah, interesting. Yeah, so she was mute, so a lot of it was very internal.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, memorizing your lines wasn't really part of it, and so that's such a huge process for actors. You get your lines down and you kind of dive into your character through what they're saying, but it was all just kind of written as blocking. And so being able to kind of fill in those blanks, what would she be thinking instead? And so a lot of kind of diving into that, and it was I really enjoyed it. It was a little challenging at times, for sure, because like, how do you portray what someone is thinking without being so over the top? But you would hope that, a lot of sound and would come in post and kind of help that process.
Yeah, a lot of, you'd also hope that the director kind of tells you, you're overacting,
Yeah.
you're underacting, I need to show more of this, need to show more
Yeah.
of that, which I imagine you got.
Yeah. And also, I find for me getting into character a lot, or just trying to find my characters, I like to kind of go out in public and be the character if it allows. And so like, for a lot of the roles, it totally allows. And you can go to the grocery store in character. No one knows. It's just kind of you, and it's a fun little exercise. But for this character, she couldn't speak, so I couldn't really do it like that.
I mean, that's normally how I go to the grocery store,
Yeah.
especially with the self-checkouts nowadays. I don't have to speak to anyone.
All.
Yeah.
That's true. That's very true. But I remember kind of going, well, how am I going to do it if I can't do my little grocery store trip in character? But a lot of it would have been driving. And I've always loved driving. And it's such a huge part of that movie that I was able to, anytime I was on a road trip, which is quite often, we go away a lot, just really get into the character when I was driving. And I found that helped so much. And now I use that with pretty much every character. Whenever I'm driving, it's my moment to kind of get inside of them.
Recently, while I was researching your IMDb page, I also
Yep.
found out that you've worked on some Hallmark movies before.
Yeah.
And I wanted to know how that transition is from working on shorts, independent, a lot of freedom, to kind of like Hallmark. It's very professional, very produced. A lot of there's a lot of involvement there from different parties. So how was that transition like? How was your first Hallmark movie?
They are fun. I'll say that much. Making Christmas movies, they're a blast. And the team up in Edmonton, Northern Gateway Productions, I should probably get that, Northern Gateway Films, they're phenomenal. It's such a family-run production company, and everyone is just so collaborative and helpful and so supportive. And so I worked on 2 Christmas movies with them last year, and it's a whole new world. Yeah, it's a different world, especially as far as acting is concerned. It's very different, but it's fun.
How does it work? You're telling me that sometimes in these short films you don't get time to rehearse.
Yeah.
Now I imagine in these Hallmark movies, there's no time to rehearse at all.
There's zero rehearsal.
Zero rehearsal.
Whatsoever. No. And it's all very quick. I mean, you shoot an entire film in 3 weeks, less than 3 weeks sometimes. Like it's so fast, and you move through it really quick. So it's really important to be prepared and to know your lines. but it's
Yeah.
also so flexible where you can play around with it and have fun and kind of play off you. It's a lot of playing off the other person and just kind of
Reacting.
yeah.
Acting is reacting, like they always say.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it was the movie that you were in was called Coupled Up.
Yeah, so I was in Coupled Up for Christmas and Me and Mr. Christmas.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how was Coupled Up like?
Coupled Up was my first one. It was as far as, Hallmark roles go, my character actually had a lot of range. She kind of like goes into it being Little Miss Perfect, but then she gets her heart broken and then kind of comes back and wins her man back. So there's a lot of range for that character, which was good for me, especially in my indie experience, where I find the acting in indies is very real and raw, but acting in Hallmarks is not necessarily very real and raw. It's almost kind of all turned down a little bit, and I was pretty fortunate where the most kind of dramatic section in the film for my character, we shot it first, and so I went in and I was in it and real and acting like how I act, and I delivered it, and they said cut, and the director was like, that was great. He's like, that was so good, felt it was amazing. He's like, but we're gonna need you to hallmark it up a little bit, and like you're upset, but you're not bad upset. And he's like, and you're heartbroken, and you're trying to win your guy back, but like you're gonna get him back. So it's like it was kind of toning it down a little bit, and just being a little more open to having fun. And so it was really good to get that lesson right on the first little scene of shooting, and then being able to play that for the rest of the film.
And how about the cast and crew? Was it people you've worked with before in the indie scene, or completely different people?
A little bit of a mixture. I'd worked quite a few times on commercials up in Edmonton, so there were a few people from some of the commercials that I had worked on. But it's like the actors, they were all new and they were all incredible. Like we just became close friends right off the bat.
And they were from Alberta or from different places?
Different places. Mostly Alberta, though. Actually, I think for Coupled Up, every actor, even the leads, at some point lived in Alberta. So like I think they were either Alberta locals now, or like the two leads don't live in Alberta anymore, but like they were born in Alberta.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and then for the other film, Me and Mr. Christmas, it was kind of a mixture. The leads weren't from Alberta at all.
And how different was that character in that movie from this character in this movie? So Coupled Up, Me and Mr. Christmas.
The character was kind of similar.
Mm-hmm.
They were pretty similar characters. Me and Mr. Christmas, she was definitely a lot more flirty, and fun, and so, but still kind of the other woman type in the film.
Yeah.
The number 4, so like the female leads competition. Yeah. But the other one was definitely more flirty, and it was pretty neat because the team up in Edmonton are also supportive. So after I shot the first film, I actually reached out to one of the producers who was also the lead of Coupled Up, and just asked for some advice, and he was really open and helpful, and mainly just said, you can't really go into a scene knowing how it's going to play out. Like, don't make that decision yet. Just go into the scene, your words, kind of what's going to happen, but be free to do it a little different and try things a little different. And maybe you're going to go this direction this take, and then in another take you can go a totally different direction, because in Hallmark you're allowed to do that. And so I was able to kind of take what he taught me and use that for the second film. And so you can see a bit of a difference. She's definitely more
in the performance and all that.
Yeah.
Would you write and direct a Hallmark film?
I've thought about it, maybe someday. It's probably not my genre of choice, but I think it'd be a lot of fun to do, to check off the list.
And you'd already know the people there and everything.
Yeah, it'd be fun to write one and direct one for sure.
How did you make this journey from actress to producer now?
Um, someone's trying to get so for me, a big part of it was during the strike. It was so quiet, and there wasn't much you could do as an actor. And so a friend of mine, we got to talking about like what we could do, because there was a strike going on, and so we developed a story and decided we'd produce a film, and it was just originally going to be, you know, the two of us playing a scene, shooting it with our phones, and kind of just like scratching that itch to be creative and get out there. And then as we developed the story, we started bringing people on board to the project, and the caliber of people who were coming on board were a lot higher than expected. And so our tiny little projects kind of started expanding into an actual short film. And kind of before we knew it, we're like, okay, we're actually going to produce a full-on short film. We got a bit of a budget for it. We had an awesome team. We had the script, and it wasn't necessarily what we planned from the start, but it's what happened, and I'm super grateful for it because the experience was.
It started out as these like iPhone shorts that you were shooting, and eventually, you went on to become a full-fledged film, short film.
Yeah. So that was just to be creative and act on camera and kind of keep things rolling, because in the strike it was so quiet, and there weren't really many opportunities to be creative, and so we were like, well, we'll make our own opportunities, and then that turned into producing a short, which was awesome and exciting and worked out quite well. That's the one that we had some pretty good success in the film festivals this year.
And how are those like? How are those film festivals like?
I loved the film festivals. The community in these festivals, it's awesome. I mean, the people who build them, who select the films, it's exciting, and being able to sit there and I love the shorts packages where you get to watch, 5 or 6 shorts at a time, and one of them is yours. It's really cool to just kind of see how everyone creates these different short films and watch them on the big screen.
And have you had people approach you and ask you about the Scene at the Bear at these festivals?
Yes, well, a lot of them.
Like audience members?
Yeah, there's like Q&As after, and there's just little meet and greets or panels. So there's a lot of networking involved in the festivals. And I think that's really important as filmmakers to, if you submit for these festivals and you get into them, you should go and meet the people who watched your films and gave them the check mark. Meet those people, meet the other people who made the films, and submerge yourself in it.
Has there been an experience at these film festivals that stood out to you when talking to the fans, when talking to your audience? Did they bring up some good points, some questions you hadn't thought about when writing the script, when making the movie?
I mean, each one has been so different. There was this pretty small new festival up in Edmonton that no one had really heard of. It's called Yikes Film Festival, and it was a very like genre horror, very interesting festival. But the audience members, they loved it, and like they were 100% for this festival. And so being able to go there and speak with the audience members for that was really exciting. And that's the one I'd say mainly where, I mean, the level of the different kinds of films in that festival really made me feel confident that I could direct a horror. Where it's like, okay, well, they were all good on a different level, but you're like, if all of these films are being selected in a film festival and I enjoy watching them, like I could do that for sure.
I wanted to ask you, what did you actually go to a post-secondary for? You mentioned university, and how does it help you be a better producer?
So my post-secondary experience has been interesting. I mean, as I said, I had no idea what I wanted to do when I grew up out of high school, like no clue. And so I started out, I took general studies to see if anything sparked my interest. Nothing did. And so that's when I went to the career counselor, and he recommended public relations or elementary school teacher. And so I went into communications, into PR for Mount Royal. And I did that for 2 years, and it was fine. You know, I enjoyed it. A lot of what I learned in those 2 years has been super helpful throughout life. The marketing, the communications, just like so much of it has been extremely helpful. But there was one class in particular where everyone was really excited about this class because this is what we're going to be doing in the real life.
This is a real life. This is the class that matters. It's
when
not the
you
option.
are working as a professional in public relations, like you'll be doing this. And I just remember being like, oh shoot, I shouldn't be here. This is not what I want to do at all. And so I ended up dropping out after 2 years and did some traveling and had some fun in life. But I always wanted to go back to school and you know, get that degree. That was always something that I just felt like I had to do. And I didn't really get to it until after I had my son, and I went back to school. And it was less about going to school to figure out what I wanted to be when I grew up, and just more about getting that degree and then figuring it out. And so I went in for history.
For history.
And I got a Bachelor of Arts in history, and I loved it. And it was fun, and I find a lot of what I learned and what I focused on has been super helpful in the film industry, where I was really interested in social history and the history of, you know, the general population, not necessarily the kings and queens and leaders, but more what actual people were like in different times.
Their customs, their beliefs.
Yeah, and so I found that to be very helpful in developing stories, developing characters, and also in a sense that there have been so many huge, significant things in the history of Homo sapiens that us as individuals, we are so insignificant that it's just like it goes back to why stress so much about perfection and about all these little things, because the reality, like, we're little grains of sand in the universe. So like just treat life like that and have more fun with it.
And I imagine, you know, that background in history really helps out when developing these characters, when writing.
Yeah.
You can pull stuff out of history.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's great because, you know, the different conflicts, the different themes that you explore in movies, they're conflicts that carry on throughout human history.
Yeah.
And you studied all that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty helpful.
And I can see the public relations definitely like shining through in this interview, and definitely as a producer.
Yeah, it's really helpful. And there's been a lot of kind of business classes that you take through that, and so it's helpful in understanding the business side, which I'm not that experienced with yet.
Yeah.
And to be honest, it would be sweet to be able to hire someone to do all that stuff. But when you're building a production company and you're building a career at the start, you kind of have to have a general understanding of it.
Of how it all works. Yeah, of course.
Yeah. And then when you get all the grants and the funding, then you can hire other people to do that stuff.
As an actress, what's your ideal director? Who's your ideal director? What are the qualities of an ideal director as an actress? Start thinking like that, you know?
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's just someone who I can trust, who's honest, who I know will be like blatantly honest, because as an actor, you have to be able to take that honesty. And so if you have a take and it's not what the director wanted, if that director is gonna shrug it off and just say, okay, yeah, we'll just go again, even though that's not what they wanted, like that's not gonna help the process at all. So working with directors who are upfront and honest, and you know, they can come up and be like, hey, that was great, but actually I want it more like this.
Yeah.
And to have that direction, it helps. It makes the process a lot stronger, more fun, because you get to try it different ways, and you get to, you know, you come into a role thinking that you're going to perform it like this, but then if you get the direction to do it in another way, then that's just a whole new experience for you as an actor. So
yeah, then it's different. And you're right, honesty,
Hmm.
honesty, and just knowing how to communicate your
Yeah.
vision.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
your ideas. Like
Yeah.
that's what you should look for in a
Be
director.
honest,
Yeah.
but like be nice about it.
Yeah.
Don't be a jerk about
I
it.
mean, like Jocelyn, we're gonna have sit here for
Yeah.
90 takes until you finally get it
Yeah, yeah. It's like,
right.
oh,
Yeah, yeah.
definitely.
I see what you mean.
Yeah.
But it's a completely different mindset. It's a completely different mindset, and I would say just garnering that experience first on both roles
Hmm.
and then combining them. You're someone who seems to be able to get something when they set their mind to. So I
Yeah.
would definitely picture you as a director and an actress on
And
the
an
same
actor.
project. You could pull it off.
I think someday I would, for sure. I also just really enjoyed strictly directing and not having to worry about how I looked or yeah, delivering any lines. It was pretty nice. But I think down the road I could totally see myself acting and directing.
You'd have to be with a crew that is there for
Yeah.
the long time because you gotta go back after you're done. I
Yeah.
mean, who calls cut? Who calls action
Yeah.
when you're in front of the camera?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Exactly.
And
And
then you gotta go back and check the whole take.
yeah, I think that's just a whole part of the industry in general is just having the people who
Having
you
the people,
trust.
having the time.
Yeah.
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 How do you find Calgary's film community? Like,
It's incredible. I mean, I had no idea what this industry would have been like when I started. It's everyone was just so supportive and helpful, and it's just been this like whole new community of people, a new family that I've met in the last 4 years that have just kind of filled this empty spot inside of me that I didn't really know was empty, but now it's just full. And I'm so grateful for all the people that I've been able to work with and become friends with, and yeah, I love them.
would you say, would you say you ever would work somewhere else aside from Calgary, aside from Alberta? Do you picture yourself maybe going down to Toronto, to Vancouver?
I mean, for jobs, I would, but not. I wouldn't want to move. I love Alberta. Alberta's my home. Um, I'm born and raised Calgarian. I'm fifth generation Albertan.
Fifth generation Alberta.
Fifth
Wow.
generation, and it's where my family is. My son's here. His dad's here. His dad's family, and so we've just it's home.
Yeah.
But of course, if I get opportunities to work on projects outside of Alberta, I would take those opportunities, but I would always come back. And I feel like where we're at as an industry right now in Alberta, we're booming, and I do see it as a pretty possible career to be successful here. And so I don't want to leave, and I don't want talented people to leave either. Thank you.
To one question that we've asked a lot of entrepreneurs when they bring up success is, what is their personal definition of success? What does success mean to you?
Freedom.
Freedom.
Freedom. Being able to be free enough to continue doing the things that I love to do, to continue working with the people I love working with, and being able to live the life that I love living with my adventures and playing in the mountain. So the freedom to just do it all. Yeah.
I think that's a good definition of it.
Thanks.
Yeah, it came so naturally too, just freedom.
Freedom. That's all. I think in general life should be about freedom. If you're not free, then you get to make the choices to make yourself free.
Now, a lot of projects come to Calgary to shoot,
Yeah.
but they're not originally developed in Alberta.
Yeah.
Do you see Alberta becoming a developing house later on in the future?
Absolutely.
Like developed in Alberta,
Yep.
made in Alberta, unionized here in Alberta.
I see a lot of that coming down the line, and it already is. There's a lot of indie features that are built in Alberta using Alberta casting crew here locally, and so I do see a lot of that growing. And I love that we get the giant projects coming up from LA and from Toronto, and I think that's great, and we will continue to do that while also simultaneously building our own industry here.
What do you say is Alberta's identity right now as a film community?
Ooh.
What are we most known for?
Like specifically, I mean our locations.
From your experience, like what you've worked on, what type of projects do we usually put out there into the world?
I don't know about the particular projects per se, but I think Alberta is just, everyone is starting to understand how we really, like, we have it all here. You've got the big cities, the small towns, the mountains, the farms, the badlands, like all within a couple hours of each other. And you can build it all just right here. And then we've got the giant studios that are being built. So it's like there's whatever it is that you're wanting to create, it can be created here.
Yeah.
That's pretty exciting.
Definitely the locations.
More people are catching on to that.
The locations is definitely, that's something that should be like giving more the spotlight.
Yeah, the locations and the people. Yeah, like we've got the talent. We've got the crew. We've got a lot of people here who are really good and passionate at what they do. So I think it's pretty exciting.
Would there be a dream collaboration that you want to do? You know, once you finally get to the world stage, is there a particular actor who you'd like to work with?
I mean, there's lots. I'd love to do an action film with Charlize Theron.
Charlize Theron.
That'd be so fun. I think
Yeah.
we would play sisters quite well. I'd love to do a comedy with Tina Fey,
Yeah.
Andy Samberg. I love them.
Tina Fey's great. Great
Yeah.
writer.
Yeah, so maybe produce something with her down the line would be so cool. I mean, there's just so many talented, awesome people out there that you never know who you're gonna get to work with. I'd just be so grateful to continue working with anyone.
But you'd want to work with them, obviously, like acting. But what about directing them?
Yeah, both.
Yeah, directing them both?
All of it.
Oh, wow.
It'd be so unreal to reach that level. And yeah, I think it's possible. Just keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, with how connected it is now.
Yeah.
I mean, I imagine 10 years, 15 years ago, it was
Yeah.
completely different. It was all dominated by
Definitely.
commercials.
Yeah.
But now we're getting everyone from Hollywood, a lot of people from Vancouver pouring in, a lot of people from Toronto.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens to the
Yeah.
industry here. And it's good to have dreams, good to have objectives
Yeah.
on, to aim for, to strive for.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Aside from, well, actually, let's talk about any future projects that you might have in film right now. I know we touched upon a little bit, but not full
Yeah.
enough.
Oh, so Refuge
mentioned that-
is the film, the feature
that film.
Yeah. And I think what is so great about this industry is you don't really know what you're going to be doing. Right since August, I've basically been slammed in different various acting roles and directing and producing, and it's been a lot. And now come January, I don't really have much on my plate, which is kind of nice, to be honest. I'm looking forward to having a few breaths and taking my son on some adventures this winter. And you never know what's going to happen. I mean, I could get an audition tomorrow and then have to be gone for all of January. And that happens a lot. And so it's just, I think it's important to, when you're busy, be grateful for the work. And when you're not busy, take advantage of that. And so as far as future plans, I've got my feature film, still working on editing the short, getting that done, and then we'll see what comes next.
Now, earlier this year, we met at the Banff Media World Festival.
Yeah.
What can you tell me about that experience? Were there any future plans, future collaborations that came out of that?
Maybe not so much collaborations, but it was a fun experience, kind of networking with different filmmakers, sitting in on some of the panels and learning a lot. It kind of, it got me a little more excited about working on more family-friendly projects. So after that, I actually wrote a proof of concept, kind of family action adventure script. So I'd love to see that kind of get developed into a potential show. And being able to bring that back to Banff.
Yeah.
I think that'd be pretty cool. They seem to be pretty keen on
family
stuff.
Yeah, they were looking for it.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
so
a lot of
I'm like,
people
well,
were.
I've got a few family ideas. So I have the script for that, and that is something that I potentially try and develop into a proof of concept and then bring that back to Banff.
Yeah. But Jocelyn, it's been great having you here. I do have one last question, which we like to ask all of our guests.
Okay.
If you had one word to describe yourself, which one would it be?
I would use the word fun.
Fun?
Fun. I always love having fun, whether I'm on set or at home by myself or with my son or in a room full of people. If you're not having fun, then what the hell's the point?
Just always being energetic,
Yeah.
always with the high spirits.
Yeah.
And that's so useful in
Maybe
this
haven't
field.
been super high today, hence the sickness, but
No worries,
this has
no
been
worries.
super fun.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for sharing your story out here.
Yeah.
It's been great having you. And thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you guys for watching. And we'll catch you later on the next episode of Authentic Albertan. Stay authentic.